Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys for joining us for yet another episode of Diving Deep into Entertainment. This is episode number 47, where we will be discussing the record-breaking month of April for the movie industry. It's been a while. I know we've only been releasing monthly episodes. It's just been a rough stretch. The reason why the dynamic trio isn't here today, because normally who sits to my right, Daniel, he is actually traveling the state of New York, most notably New York City, and that's why he's not here. And then Jordan, with his workaholic self, he's not here. He's working right now. But the show must go on, and I think we have a pretty good episode today, or I have a pretty good episode today. So just so you know, my name is Francis Mandrala, like always, and as I already mentioned, we're going to be discussing the record-breaking month of April. But before we get into that, I do want to discuss two films I've seen recently over the past couple of months that I think you should check it out. First is Upgrade. It's this science fiction noir film about a man who gets paralyzed, blah, blah, blah. But there's a nice tweak to it because it has a lot of RoboCop inspirations, and I highly recommend that film if you are a science fiction fan or if you're a fan of B films. It is, I would have to say, one of the better films I've seen in 2018, so I do highly recommend that film. And then second, most recently was a film called Hotel Artemis. And the best way to describe this film is if somehow apocalyptic and John Wick combined. It is a very apocalyptic world, yet at the same time it has John Wick references. Just imagine a John Wick hotel in a world that is going to shit, right? So that's the best way to describe that. It has a great cast, by the way. Not any A-listers, but if you're a fan of Jodie Foster or the actress from The Mummy and The First Kingsman, go see it. I think it's an entertaining film with a great premise. So moving on from that, now we're going to get into the films of April, and we're going to discuss what they opened with, where they ended up, and is that a positive, negative in the spectrum of budgets, expectations, and all of that. So the first week of April was April 6th, where A Quiet Place, Blockers, and Chappaquiddick opened up. Now, let's start with A Quiet Place, right? It was released by Paramount Pictures, starring Emily Blunt and John Kay, her husband. I can't pronounce his last name, so I'm not going to butcher it. It opened with $50.2 million for, I believe, an $18 million budgeted film that going into the weekend at max, people were expecting $30 million on its opening weekend. So just from the get-go, it nearly doubled, and in many people's minds actually did double its expectations for opening weekend. Ever since then, it has gone on to make over $185 million as of this recording, and the way it's looking is going to end up with roughly $190 million domestically alone, which, to put that in perspective, Paramount would have probably been psyched if it made $190 million worldwide, and this is domestically alone, which is roughly 3.8, specifically 3.78 times its opening weekend, so it had massive legs. And when it comes to the global perspective, it made another $140 million foreignly, where it's going to end up with $335 million globally. And once again, let's be honest, if this film made worldwide around $150 million, that would have been a win. So the fact that it's doing this both domestically and globally is a huge breath of fresh air for Paramount. They've been struggling for the past at least year and a half, and you could really make the case going back as far as 2.5 years up until this point. But yeah, if you haven't seen that is a must-see film for any person who's a fan of movies, a fan of going to theaters. It is a must-see. Yes, it's technically a horror film, but I think it's at its best when it's a drama and an intense thriller. Now, moving on to the film Blockers, a comedy released by Universal Studios. It is starring Leslie Mann, John Cena, and additional individuals, as you could see the cast on the poster. It opened up with $20.5 million, which was actually pretty good. Its legs were not the best. It ended up finishing with roughly $60 million domestically, which is 2.9 times its opening weekend, which, considering its budget is below $30 million, that's not bad whatsoever. It added additional $30+ million foreignly for a total of $92 million exactly globally, which is good considering its budget. The only thing I can say about this, I was expecting this to have better legs, more so in the 3.5, 4 times its opening weekend, where it finished with $70-80 million. But a win is a win, and Universal continues to put out films that are making a lot more than their budget. Ever since 2014, in fact. Now moving on to the smaller film in Chappaquiddick. This was released by Entertainment Studios. This is the Kennedy film about the youngest brother, I believe, where Jason Clarke portrays one of the Kennedys, and it also stars Ed Helms. It opened to $5.8 million, and it has officially closed this run at $17.4 domestically, which is actually 3 times its opening weekend, and is pretty good. Now, I don't know its budget, but I'm pretty sure it's over $10 million, so once you count in marketing and all that stuff, this technically won't be a film that gets into the black, especially since it didn't open up internationally. But for a film like this, it's technically an indie film. It's a political film. It doesn't have any star power. The fact that it got to $17.5 million is impressive on its own hand in 2018 standards. Now moving on to the next week, April 13th, which became very crowded. April was not supposed to be this crowded. April was supposed to have some breathing room, but we all know that Avengers Infinity War opened up a week sooner. So Rampage moved up to April 13th, and this is a film released by Warner Brothers. It is the third film that is directly based off of a video game or influenced by a video, or has video game influences that Warner Brothers has released over the past month and a half up until this point. Don't forget Tomb Raider, Ready Player One, and now Rampage. Rampage is starring Dwayne Johnson and Naomi Harris. It opened up with $35.7 million, which, not bad. It's much better than anticipated for the simple fact it had legs over its opening weekend. It was something like 3.5 times its opening day, which is incredible for today's standards. And as of right now, it is coming up to $96 million, and I feel like it's going to end up around $97 million total, which is 2.7 times its opening weekend. Not bad. At the end of the day, Infinity War really messed up its total gross because it had to move up a week earlier, going up directly against A Quiet Place, and then it only had 2 weeks to actually make its money. But $97 million is still impressive considering it is the third highest grossing video game film in the States, while even more impressively, when everything's said and done, it's going to finish with roughly $420 million globally. Just to put that in perspective, it made over 75% of its profits from international borders, and it is going to be the second highest grossing video game film of all time, only behind Warcraft. So yeah, Warcraft is still the highest grossing film worldwide and internationally when it comes to video game films. Now moving on to a good surprise is Truth or Dare, which was yet another low budget film by Universal Studios. This is starring Lucy Hale and Tyler Posey. They're not really movie famous, but if you've watched their TV shows, then you know who they are. Big fans of both, especially Tyler Posey, Teen Wolf. But anyways, it opened with $18.7 million over 3,000 theaters. And when everything's said and done, it finished with $40.8 million domestically, or roughly 2.2 times its opening weekend. Which, I want to point out 2 things. First and foremost, the fact that it even came close to $20 million on opening weekend, with A Quiet Place opening the week before, is impressive. And then you add Rampage to that factor. I'm surprised. I'm even more surprised by the legs, because normally films like this top out at 2 times its opening weekend. So the fact that it made some extra change, in addition to grossing over $45 million foreignly, That's impressive. Just so you know, it finished with $87.5 million globally on a $4 or $5 million budget. So there you have it. Blumhouse knows what they're doing. The very next week was a crowded week in terms of new releases. April 20th, where we had I Feel Pretty, Super Troopers 2, and Traffic. Now, all of these films technically disappointed, but when you consider their budget, they should have all ended up making some type of money. I Feel Pretty was released by STX Entertainment. This is the film starring Amy Schumer and Michelle Williams. It opened with $16 million over 3,400 theaters, and it ended up finishing with $48.7 million, which is exactly 3 times its opening weekend. Which is impressive because this is easily Amy Schumer's lowest opening weekend for a film, yet it ended up making more money than her film from last year, the Mother's Day caper film that I can't think of the name of. It did not open internationally though, so I'm pretty sure worldwide it is her lowest grossing film of all time. Now moving on to Super Troopers 2. This was definitely the 420 film, where it's one of the most front-loaded films of the month and the year. It had a $15.2 million opening weekend, over 2,000 theaters, completely overachieved. It made so much money on opening weekend, it basically made its money back. But of course, because it was the 420 movie of the day, of the weekend, it ended up only making $30.5 million total. And I believe it did not open internationally. So everything it's going to make is from domestic audience members, but I believe the budget was low, below $10 million, so 20th Century Fox definitely made their money back. And part of this film was crowdfunded as well, so they have nothing to worry about there. And then the last release of the weekend was Traffic, which was released by Lionsgate. This is the film starring Paula Patton and Omar Epps. So if you're a fan of either, I hope you did support it. If you did not, go rent it, because I actually caught up with this film. It's a decent film, enjoyable, and if you're a fan of either of those actors, it is a good watch. Now, it opened with $3.9 million over just 1,000 theaters, so in today's time, I guess that's not bad. It ended up making 2.3 times its opening weekend, finishing with $9.2 million domestically. It made some change internationally, but it still only made $9.5 million globally. So, in terms of its budget, it might be in the black, but it's not making that much money. But once again, it's one of those indie type films, no star power. I guess you could see something like this on a Netflix, on an Amazon streaming. So why go to movie theaters, right? And we're going to finish off with the last new release of April. And of course, this is Avengers Infinity War, released by Disney. It was produced by Marvel, of course. This is starring basically everybody, as you can see in the poster. Yeah, like, look at that list, man. It's insane. I believe the cast is over 60. At least 30 of them you should know to some degree. But, this film broke the opening weekend record both domestically and worldwide, where it opened with $257.7 million over 4,500 theaters, basically 4,500 theaters, and it made around $650 worldwide on opening weekend alone. As of now, it's around $655. When everything's said and done, it should finish with nearly, if not $670 million domestically, depending on how it fares out with Incredibles 2 and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. And globally, it's going to finish with over $2 billion, specifically $2 billion and $50 million, right? An extra $50 million. So most likely it's not going to catch up with The Force Awakens worldwide, and obviously not domestically. But as we're going to have a separate video about this. We're going to get into all the records it broke, it has broken, and it technically still could break. But yeah, Infinity War. technically speaking, it's going to be the least leggy $200+ million opener, where it's only going to make 2.6 times this opening weekend. But at that point, it's just, you're going to finish in the top 5 for highest grossing films of all time domestically. You're in the top 5 foreignly. You might even be top 3. And you're going to be the top 5 worldwide. You can't complain about that. And that's all I really have to say. I'm trying to keep these sweet, short, and simple. There's not much to say. If you have anything you want to add, if you have anything you think I could do better for these segments, let me know. If you're more interested in certain things, let me know, and I will without a doubt be happy to talk about it. If you're really interested in the budget and all that type of stuff, I will do the research, add it on. I'm starting to do the theater count just so you could put in perspective how good something is doing. I didn't get all the theater counts, so that's definitely a fuck up on me, so pardon me on that. But so you know, for the month of April, really the only 2 films that might have lost some money is Chappaquiddick and Traffic. But as I previously pointed out, if you're not getting critically acclaimed reviews, you don't have star power, and there's most likely a film similar to this on Netflix or another streaming platform, it's really tough to break out. Now, the benefit, especially with Chappaquiddick, is it had legs, so that's a good thing. Anything else? My biggest surprise of the month has to be A Quiet Place. My favorite film of the month, not accounting Infinity War, it might be Rampage. Rampage was... I still think Rampage is the best direct video game film to date, just because it works as a film all by itself. It just helps that it has little details here and there that are based off of a video game. And if you're a fan of the video game, play the video game, you will notice them. And I would say the biggest win would probably be Super Troopers 2, just because that was a crowd-funded film. It had no right to open the way it did, and it technically had better legs than anybody was expecting. So that was definitely a win. But anything else? I do want to point out to say this. The reason why this is a record-breaking April is mainly due to Avengers Infinity War, since it made over $300 million in the month of April alone, which pushed April to over $1 billion for the first time in United States history, which is astonishing. And as we will talk about next month, for the month of May, it's crazy, but Infinity War was that one film that skyrocketed April, and it left a massive hole in May. And off the top of my head, I think April was a better month, both in terms of quality, expectations, and just pure entertainment. When you look at it, every single week, there was at least one film that I would recommend seeing in theater. You know, the first week was A Quiet Place. The second week was Rampage. The week after that, I guess Super Troopers 2. And then you finish the month with Infinity War. So what is there not to like? You had a little bit of everything. Hopefully, if we keep getting months like this, the box office and the movie industry won't die, but that's just a big film enthusiast coming at you. But if you like the video, give us that thumbs up. If you dislike the video, I completely understand. It's not as fun and entertaining when the trio's here. But like I said, if you want to talk to me personally, hit those comments. If you want to talk to the Rhinos and Aliens group as a whole, you could hit any of those links. We are on Facebook, we are on Twitter, we are on Instagram, and we hope that we continue to make higher quality videos rather than more videos. That's the goal, and it kind of works out with our schedules better that way. But let us know. Any type of feedback is good feedback, either about this video directly or the videos overall as the channel, as in terms of the channel. So thank you. I hope you had a great weekend. hopefully this post tonight and not tomorrow morning. But hey, life must go on, and I hope to see you next month for another monthly recap. Hopefully we could at least do 2 episodes a month, but we'll see where that goes. See you in a couple days, because I believe Sebastian's coming over, and we have 2 episodes because we missed a couple weeks for sports, so we have a lot to talk about. Okay, much love, LLPH, and see you next time. If you want to subscribe, just hit this bad boy up here, that big fat rhino. If you want the newest video, to the right. If you want the recommended, to the left. And then, of course, our personal dick pic. Yep, right below. So thank you for joining us once again, and we hope to see you next week. So peace out.
Peace.